Hey, I'm Sarah Smith, family doctor, clinical day advisor, and the chatting coach. Welcome back to Sustainable Clinical Medicine podcast, where we're going to be interviewing peers or world experts who can help us think about our clinical day in a way that is more sustainable and create time for our lives outside of medicine. We are celebrating 5 years of the Charting Champions program. The program opened in October 2020 with 77 founding members, and we now have a thriving community of 1,500 doctors. We are so proud of our members. Inside the program, we give you strategy plus clinical day advisors, and that is getting you results. Over the time of the program, we've been monitoring our members' success. We've seen a significant decrease in the hours spent charting, the hours doing clinical paperwork outside of the clinical hours, and no significant difference in the number of patients seen in a full clinical day. In addition, our doctors reported feeling more focused at work, feeling in control of their clinical day, and rating their mental energy at work as significantly higher. Our doctors reported an increase in their current quality of life, a decrease in work-related dread, a decrease in feelings of burnout, and a decrease in thoughts of quitting due to administrative burdens. We know that the Charting Champions program reduces the time doctors spend on charting or tasks outside of the clinical hours and increasing free time and quality of life. Now it's your turn. We have a significant birthday bonus available for you, and we'd love you to join us inside the Charting Champions program. We're going to be having a kickoff call for our new members and our existing members, so you get to meet the community. You're going to get a one-on-one call with me, and that's not something that you can normally buy. So that's a special gift to you as a thank you for joining our thriving community. If you want to learn more, come along to the free live workshop that we're having this month. Head to chartingcoach.ca and you'll see the link right at the top of the website. I'm so excited that we have been helping more than 1,500 doctors inside the Charting Champions program over the last 5 years, and we're just getting started. I want to invite you inside this thriving community, start getting the help you need to create time for your life outside of medicine. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We are delighted to have you with us for another episode. Today, I have with us Archana Shrestha to talk to us about what she does in the world. Welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I'm excited to be here.
So good, so good. So introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and where you came from in medicine.
Yeah, so my name is Archana, and I'm an emergency physician. I'm a certified coach. I'm an author and a speaker, and I'm really passionate about helping physicians create lasting wellness. I'm the founder and chief wellness officer of the Mama Doc School, as well as Physician Wellness Solutions, and I lead programs designed to reduce burnout and help doctors reclaim their health, energy, and the joy in medicine. And I really draw on a lot of my own personal journey and my professional experience, essentially because I'm on a mission to really empower physicians, not just to survive the demands of medicine, but to truly thrive.
Okay, we are kinder-hearted in that respect for sure. Okay, so tell us about your journey in medicine and in emergency medicine as well.
Yeah. I went into med school not really fully knowing what kind of medicine I would practice. But I really fell in love with the emergency department the very first time I rotated there. It was just a very exciting place to be, and well before any of us were called healthcare heroes, I personally would walk into the ER and was like, this is where the badass doctors are, where the heroes are, because they were literally like saving lives, right? And as a med student, I was very impressed by that. And I just liked that there were these moments where you could really intervene and make a massive difference, really truly save a life, save someone from a stroke, there's so many different things that you could really do. And I really loved that. So I ended up choosing emergency medicine, despite being warned by others like, hey, that's a field with high rates of burnout. And I was like, well, I love it, and that's what I want to do. And there wasn't really anything that came close, to the feeling I felt in the ER. And but things were great. I loved it. I matched in emergency medicine, did my whole residency. I was super excited to be an attending physician, and it all kind of started to fall apart a bit once I became a mom. And um, that second shift really kind of came in, so I would go to my first shift working in the ER and then come home to the second shift responsibilities that tends to fall on the shoulders of women more so than men, all the things that we tend to do at home. The cooking, the cleaning, the childcare, the taking the kids to their activities and appointments and planning their parties and all of those fun things. And I have an incredibly supportive husband, but I felt, and society kind of puts this on us as women that we're supposed to do it all, right? Like as working women, we're not only supposed to work, our regular job, but then we're supposed to come home and do all this other stuff. So, and I felt I was failing if I wasn't able to do it all. And so that's where it started to kind of, the cookie started to crumble, so to speak, in terms of I started to feel what I now call double burnout, because I was feeling some professional burnout as well as the parental burnout. And kind of hit rock bottom where it's like, my health really was declining. I was huffing and puffing going up the stairs. I was having trouble keeping up with my toddler kids. And, sort of the rock bottom moment was when my scrub pants no longer fit. And I was like, man, because, the scrub pants we used to wear back in the day before they came out with all these stylish, like cute, trendy ones were like really big and baggy. And I was like, man, it felt like a very defeating moment for those to no longer fit me. And so, I went through that burnout and tried many different things to find my way back. And what I found was that, the first time around when I was in burnout was that I tried to do a lot, the standard thing, right? Take more vacations, to exercise more, all the self-care, yoga, meditation. And while all of those things are wonderful and I'd love for people to do them, I was still feeling burnt out. I was feeling better, but I know I was in burnout because they kept giving us these surveys, these burnout surveys. Probably, because we were a teaching institution, we were around med students and residents, and they didn't want burnt out attendings around them. So I would take those and I would always show that I was high risk for burnout, despite, me having this really great self-care routine. And I just couldn't understand. I was like, why, and my second rock bottom moment came when I got that dreaded phone call from my medical director, who was like, Archana, is everything okay with you? And we're getting complaints from nurses, and he was like, that's not like you. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely not like me. I get along great with everyone. And I've always had that reputation of really getting along well with the team. And I had to admit to myself that I was still burnt out, and so I couldn't understand why fully at that moment because I thought I was doing everything I was supposed to prevent it. Um, and then I started to realize it was more the mental and emotional exhaustion. And I really like this definition of burnout that the American Psychological Association uses, which is that burnout is three elements, which is physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. So it's three types of exhaustion. And so while I was doing a great job addressing to the best of my ability the physical exhaustion, I hadn't done anything to address the mental and emotional piece of it. And so that's when, with the help of a coach, I started to really address all of those different pieces of it. And things really started to shift for me. And so that's a lot of what I like to teach to other physicians is how to address the mental exhaustion and the emotional exhaustion as well, so that they can really feel better and get out of burnout and stay out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Go back to that first burnout moment. What were the things that you were experiencing that told you that you weren't doing, like you said, my body changed, but what else were you noticing about how you were handling work that might have given you clues about the burnout then?
Yeah, right. So it really came down to like attitude, like I just was like, felt like I had just taken on this really different attitude than when I had started, right? Like I wasn't excited to be at work. I was counting down the hours so I would get to leave. Um, I don't think I ever got to the point of being like really cynical with like patients, like I was always like that was a part I actually enjoyed was the interactions with the vast majority of my patients, of course. There's those exceptions, but I think it was those types of things, I never had a problem with charting, thankfully. I was someone who just had this rule for myself that I do it as quick as I can. It's just a medical legal document, and that I don't leave my charts open. I'm just like I get them done and I go home so that because I hated to have to open up my computer at home and do anything related to work. My home time was very like precious and sacred to me that I was like I rather stay a little bit late and get it done and then just go home like my mind cleared of all the things. Um, but yeah, I think that those were some of the things. Yeah, just kind of counting down the time I could leave. A lot of wondering, like, how am I going to last? How am I
Mm.
going to last, till retirement age in this field?
Now, how did you fit in physical activity and changing things for the better in terms of the physical part of the burnout as a busy mum and a busy emerge doc? Like, how did you fit it in? Where was that time found?
Yeah. So for me, it really became about having a good morning routine. And this is what I teach a lot of my clients. There's some people who are just like, I'm just not a morning person, and I just can't get up early. I'd rather stay up late and do it. And I'm like, okay, fine, you can do it then. But it's really like creating some kind of me time in your life. For me, that was the morning. And, as a mother, like we all know, especially when children are young, right? The second they wake up, they need you, right? Like they're like, mommy, like this, help me brush my teeth, help me get dressed. Like, then you got to prepare their food, their lunches, like all the things, right? So I knew if I didn't do it before they woke up, it was not going to happen. And usually by the end of the day, I was tired. My schedule was kind of unpredictable. Um, those were the things. So I just really tried to structure it around a morning routine. Doing shift work, that wasn't always possible because sometimes I was working overnight, but it was usually after I do my overnight, I'd sleep for a while, and then I would wake up and do it then. So I kind of just made sure I was always doing it. But I think like from a mindset piece as well, Sarah, it's just became a non-negotiable for me because I realized if I didn't take care of myself, I couldn't give I couldn't give everybody what I wanted to give, right? I realized when I wasn't taking care of myself, I was giving them the rest of me instead of the best of me. And so I needed to shift that paradigm to, as women, we're always taught to put everyone else first, right? As doctors, we're told patient comes first, right? And so the implication of that is you last. And the problem with that is, I mean, it's really not a either or, right? Like it's a and. It really needs to be a both. And so what it took for me for a while was to shift to like me first, like taking care of myself is actually number one. And it's actually self-stewardship is what I call it now. It's not just self-care. Self-care is a word that's used a lot. And I think a lot of people kind of equate it with a lot of things like, manicures, pedicures, massages, and stuff like that. And those are great, but that's not what I mean. I mean some just really basic things. And it's like we need to be stewards of our bodies, good stewards of our bodies. Um, And what does that mean? Just like you're going to be a good steward of your car and, do the oil changes and change your tires and brakes and all of that stuff. Like we need to do that for our body on a daily basis, right? And so, I'm talking about basic things like making sure you're getting your sleep, your water, healthy nutrition, movement, sunlight, all of those things that move your body in a way that feels good for you, whatever that looks like in terms of exercise, right? And so I realized if I wasn't doing that, then I was just showing up like not as the mom I wanted to show up as. I was feeling short with my kids. I wasn't really like enjoying the time, and also at work, I wasn't showing up as my best self. So I kind of had to flip the paradigm, put my own health and well-being first, and then everything else flowed from there. And that's sort of how I talk about it now, is really giving from the overflow instead of trying to pour from an empty pitcher and there's nothing left to give. Like I rather you fill that pitcher or that cup so much so that it's like overflowing and everyone else gets the overflow of what you have to give.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. All right. Now, you said you started doing all those things, and then they kept giving you these burnout questionnaires, and you were like, but wait a minute, I'm still noticing this burnout. Like, how often were you getting questionnaires, and what was the behind the scenes? Were they expecting you to do anything with that information, or they were just wanting to know where we're all at? Like, what is how did
Right. Yeah. They would give it to us about every year or so. I think it was just sort of their standard practice. And, that's what I found so insane about it, really, Sarah, is that they would give that to you, and it's like you come up high risk, and then there's like nothing. There was no follow up, there was no check in, there's no like, here's some resources for you. And I was just like, that is so ridiculous, because like it's not like we would give a depression screening and then someone's like off the charts depressed. And then we're like, bye bye, have a great day. Like we would definitely follow that up and talk with them and see what we need to do. Right. And so I think that institutions who are giving those really need to have some things in place to really help their clinicians through it, because we all know that the burnout rates continue to be really high. Like in the US, at least, I don't know what they are in Australia, but in the US, we continue to be close to 50%. We're now back to kind of pre-COVID levels, about 45%, but that's still really high, for pretty much just about compared to any other industry. And, we talk about the gender pay gap, but there's a gender burnout gap too, where about 13, so women have like a 13% higher rate of burnout compared to men. So we are, that second shift, I think, is really what's causing us to feel more burnt out. But yeah, there weren't any resources really provided. Um, but I think, what it kind of sent me on a journey. And I was like, okay, I need to do something else here. It's not just about the self-care and, yoga and meditation and all those things. The vacations are great and my exercising is great, but like there's something more here. And, what it really came down to is like, even if I cut down my hours, I was still feeling that way. So it wasn't even just the circumstances, is what I realized, Sarah. And I also kind of looked around at other places to work. But then I was like, you know what? It's almost the same thing. There's like, I couldn't really say that, oh, if I go over and work at this other hospital, it's going to be a lot better. And I was like, no, it's really not the circumstances. It's the whole industry, of course, has problems, but our healthcare industry, especially here in the US, is very broken. But what I realized is, I wasn't necessarily in a position of power to change those things. Absolutely, things should change, right? The culture should change. The uh, efficiency of practice needs to improve. But those weren't things that at that time were in my power to change, nor were they going to change quickly. And so I needed to kind of look at myself, like, what could I do to improve my own individual well-being beyond just the, addressing the physical piece of it. And so that's where I started to understand that it was really about the thought work. It was about learning how to process my emotions. And that kind of sent me on a whole new journey there.
Hmm. Tell me more about that conversation with the chief who called you and said, "Hey, the nurses are complaining." Had you noticed that about yourself within your shifts? And what was the what was that conversation? Did it have anything behind it to help you, or was it just simply a stop that? Like what happened behind?
Um, Yeah, I don't think this medical director, had the wherewithal to really provide any additional support. Or, I think he was just reaching out. Like he's a good guy. I think he just wanted to reach out and see what was going on. And I mean, that's part of his job, right? Like if he has to handle all those types of issues that come up, right? But it didn't take much, all just the one time him saying that, I was like, okay, I was very much more cognizant of how I was showing up and making sure not to kind of make that mistake again. And I think it was just what I recall about it was just, and what he was referring to was just this like one time where I just couldn't hold it in anymore. I couldn't keep that smile on my face. I couldn't pretend I wasn't annoyed. I couldn't pretend that this was okay. And so, or that I was okay, and so yeah, it wasn't like a huge, massive blow up at a nurse or anything like that. But I think it just seemed off character to me, or, maybe, it was just something hard for this person to hear. So.
Mm. Did you feel heard? Was your story able to be told, or was it simply a telling at you that this happened? You broke cover, you let your emotions out, stop that. Or was there the hearing of, tell me more about the story, tell me more about why that's happening for you and what else is going on? Do you think that
Yeah, there
was
was a little bit of that. Tell me more. And, I think there was probably some things just going on, but nothing major was really going on in life except just the regular life stuff
yeah.
of being a mom, having young kids, toddlers tantruming, like you're not getting to rest at home and you're just tired by a broken system. Like there was nothing like extraordinary really going on in my life. Um, but he did want to hear, was there anything? And, I think I kind of was like, yeah, like my kids are little and, we have all the little kid issues going on at home and I'm not really always sleeping the best. And, but there wasn't, I really don't think that the conversation was all that in depth or, really getting to the core of the issue. And, I think that these medical directors or chiefs, they're at a loss at what to do anyway. They're kind of like, what can we actually do to help people? Like, and many of them are burnt out themselves.
Tell me what your coach did, the coach that you found. What was the difference there? What did you get in from those conversations or that information that shifted things for you?
Right. Yeah. I think that what really shifted was just having a safe space to talk, right? And to really kind of share what my experience was and what I was feeling and talking it out. And also realizing that I didn't have to stay there if I didn't want to, right? And that it was, and then, kind of like just a conversation of like, hey, like, why are you choosing to stay there? And then just even that question alone is like, oh, wait, yeah, you're right. I am making a choice to stay here at this moment, right? Because I don't have to. I think what I kind of came to realizing in those initial conversations was that I'm a free agent, and nobody owns me. And I'm the one who did all the work to get through med school and got the degree, and I even paid for it myself. And, no one actually owned me. Furthermore, I never promised anyone that I would stay at this particular place or work, as a doctor for however many years. And that I was, I'm a free agent, so I could go or I could stay. And either way, I'm making a choice. And so as I thought about that, I was like, well, actually, I do want to stay here. I do actually like the vast majority of the people I work with here. I like my commutes. I like my salary and pay and benefits. Like for whatever reasons I could come up with that I wanted to stay, I chose to stay. Or maybe, I think at that time also it's like I didn't want to move my family. There are many reasons why I was like, okay, let me stay. I'm choosing to stay here. And so that alone shifts things when shift your language from I have to do this to I'm choosing to or I want to. And so I think that that was a big piece of it. And then learning how to process emotions was another big piece of it. And because as doctors, like we really don't know how to do that. Like we've never been taught, we've only been really taught to like stuff it down, right? Like stuff down the emotions. And then, and I think like that's the big thing. Like we learn to, in emergency medicine, we learn how to break the bad news to the family of, there's a cancer diagnosis or your loved one passed away, and we learn how to say that, and how to break the news to them, but we're never taught how to process these kinds of things ourselves. And in emergency medicine, we see a lot of tragic, sad things like bad accidents, rape, domestic violence, child abuse, you see it all. And we have no idea how to process through it. And so, yeah, I mean, sometimes they'll do these debriefs, but it's not enough really. And it's just a couple minutes and it's really not truly like processing through the emotions. So I think like that was the other big skill that I learned.
Mhm. Can you give us an example of how to process the emotion and a way of being that a practice that you do that may help us understand what that looks like to process emotion?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, so I actually teach this method that I call the H&P method of processing an emotion. And just like we do a history and a physical on a patient, we can do the same thing on our emotions. And so the first comes down to just naming it, like what is the emotion that you're feeling to the best of your ability. And as doctors, sometimes we have a limited range of emotions we can identify, which is totally fine. Over time, that kind of grows and expands. So we might be able to distinguish some subtleties between things. But first of all, just naming it and then rating it. So just like we have a patient with abdominal pain, rate the pain, we can do the same here with the intensity of the pain, of the emotion on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the most. And then go ahead and then I go ahead and start describing it. Like, what does it feel like? Let's say the emotion is stress. Like, what does that feel like in the body? And just really not going back to our thoughts about all the reasons we're feeling stress or the thoughts that are leading to the stress, but just staying present in our bodies and identifying, where do I feel the stress in my body? Is it like my jaw is clenched? Does it feel like a tightness in my chest? Is it something like in my stomach? And then any associated symptoms like you're getting hot or feel sweaty or your heart's racing. And then like my bonus question I tell people is like, what color would you describe it as? Just give it a color. And so then from there, we visualize being on the shore of a beach, and just imagine like waves of this emotion just washing over your feet. Only your feet are in the water and just washing, imagining the water kind of washing over your feet. And I have them breathe in and out. And with each time that the water recedes back, that it's taking away that emotion with them. And I usually have my clients do about like 10 breaths or so of that. And again, rate the intensity of the emotion. And a lot of times it's come down significantly. If it's not completely gone, then I have them keep doing that. So that's something that I teach. But there's so many other methods of processing emotion. Sometimes for me, it's by actually just getting the thoughts out of my head and onto a piece of paper, like especially if I'm feeling overwhelmed. that can help because it gets it all out of my head. I no longer have to carry it in my head. It's all on the paper and I can kind of look at it from there. Sometimes it can be like movement and moving your body. Sometimes it's talking it out with someone who you trust. There's so many ways, like getting outdoors, breathing. There's tapping. There's so many different ways of doing it, and I encourage everyone to have a couple different ways in which sort of their go-tos for processing emotions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think it's really helpful. I know that in the emergency department, you know that rising frustration, full waiting room, full beds, nowhere to put anyone. This person's been here for 3 days. They should be on the floor. Like what's going on here? Like you're right, the system is not designed for your comfort, the patient's comfort. Like nothing's comfortable about this environment in the emergency room. And learning those mini micro relaxations was super helpful. Even I noticed that in my body as I'd go through the shift. I was exhausted trying to keep it all inside for the entire shift. So when you finally did get to either end the shift or go down to the call room, if you did happen to have a night where you could lie down for 5 minutes, there was no way you were sleeping because all of that was just vibrating in your body, whether it be anger or dread or miserable or overwhelmed or whatever it was, stressed, frustrated. Like there wasn't any of the was a few moments of joy, laughter. Mostly it was just annoyed, right? Stop talking there. I'm busy thinking. I'm busy working, like all the things. And you're right, just learning. I think that even the analogy of standing on the shore, feeling the anger and having it kind of wash away that process, you can do these things, these teeny tiny micro relaxations while you're on the phone waiting to hand over a consult. And it was incredible because you could just dump some of that out as you went along. Very helpful. And also, as
Yeah,
you know, there may be someone on shift that you can talk with who is a trusted person to you. You say, oh, that was hard. But even just being able to say that can just offload some of that tension that you're all like currently bottling down to put your happy face on. Which is what I was
yeah,
worried about that your chief was saying to you was, keep that inside. What are you talking? Don't let the nurses see that. It's like that, yeah,
right,
that's not the answer. And also
right, yeah.
yelling at your team's not the answer either. It's just showing that, oh, I'm in a breaking point right now. That's not good.
Right. Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yeah, I think that you're exactly right. Like, if you have some trusted people you can talk to, sometimes just, for me, it was on shift. Just sometimes I would just need to go to the bathroom and just like breathe in the bathroom for like do like some box breathing for like a couple minutes or just like those sighs, like the forced sighs. Like just breathing was always like a very good thing, or even if I could just get outside for a couple of minutes. Like, I always say the ER is like a casino. There's usually no windows to the outside world. Like it could be 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. You have no idea. And you kind of feel like, like it's just this weird feeling. You feel so disconnected from nature.
Yeah.
And there's all the buzzing and the beeps and the things, the monitors. And so just going outside, even for a couple of minutes, can be really, really helpful. But I think, particularly after those really tough shifts, those ones where you have a pediatric death or just, I always felt the worst after taking care of rape victims, like that was just one of the really hardest things for me. And or like child abuse, like those were the hardest ones for me. Or you have a bad outcome, unexpected bad outcome. And so I always would just take some time the next day to like really like just meditate a lot, to exercise, to get outside, to really take some extra time to do some thought downloads, maybe get coached on it. Like there's some things that go deeper that you're like, I really need to process this even more, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like you say, you need to know that you were injured by that. right?
Mhm.
Something happened and that really hit home. Could be another way that you feel it. I feel this. It got through my barrier. Oof.
Mhm.
And then who do we connect with? Who have you got to connect with? How do you look after yourself so well after something like that happens? Because you don't want to just keep those things inside and think, I should be bigger than this, or I should be able to handle this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so that a lot of people do keep it in, right? Or they do buffer it away, right? They neutralize it, all the feelings with food, with alcohol. Some people use drugs. I mean, it could be social media, it could be Netflix. Like there's so many different ways where we're trying to neutralize the feeling, and it is a coping mechanism, but a lot of these will have like a net negative, right? And that's what we'll call buffering. And so that is, I think for us, the most socially acceptable thing as doctors is food. And you kind of see it in the ER because the donuts are all over the place, the cookies, the brownies, the cupcakes, right? The pizza. Whenever the ER was busy, the pizza would just show up like magically, right? I don't even know who was ordering it. It just shows up, right? And so almost everybody in the ER is stress eating. And that's actually where I learned it. I actually never stress ate before that. And so that's part of the thing. Like if we don't learn how to handle our emotions, then there's going to be some way that you're trying to deal with it. It's what if it's not processed in that way, kind of what we already described, it's going to be in some other way, right? Some kind of way that's probably going to have a net negative, which could impact our health, right? When we're not eating healthy, which can, if we're drinking more alcohol, can also impact our health, right? Or staying up late watching a bunch of Netflix, and then we're not getting our sleep and we're having a hard time waking up the next day.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, tell us about what you're currently doing with physicians in the programs that you're running.
Yeah, so I have two different things that I'm working on right now. So within the Mama Doc School, I help women doctors overcome the stress eating, the strong cravings that we tend to have, the scarcity around food, and really that disconnection that we had too from our bodies. Like, we learned these four bad habits in med school, which are those, the scarcity around food, the mindless eating, this buffering or neutralizing with food. And then also that other piece, we became very disconnected from our bodies. I think we all had the experience of being scrubbed into a long OR case where you weren't allowed to scrub out. And even if it was like you were super hungry and it's 3 hours past lunchtime and you feel like hypoglycemic, like you're going to pass out. So we just learned to cut off our body signals. And so I help women physicians achieve lasting weight loss by addressing those habits and learning to no longer turn to food to handle emotions and learning how to process emotions instead, how to handle cravings, and how to decondition the habit of always acting on them, and how to just stay really connected with your body and reconnect with your hunger and satiety levels again. And so inside that program, the women who join in lose about 15 to 20 pounds in just 12 weeks. But moreover than that, they just feel amazing. Like they get their energy back, they're feeling happier, they're feeling more confident in their body and while getting dressed. I can't tell you how many women physicians tell me how, like, basically have a lot of body image concerns and they're like kind of speaking to themselves. Their self-talk is really negative about themselves. And so that's really always amazing to see that turn around. And not just because they lost weight, but because they learn to love themselves at any size. We talk a lot about that, about loving yourself all the way down to your goal weight. And so it's just a really amazing program where people just come out feeling so much more in control around food. Instead of feeling like the food's controlling them, they feel like they are back in control over the food. And so my other program I have is called Thrive RX, where we are coaching on burnout and how to overcome it by addressing those three pieces I talked about: the physical exhaustion, the mental exhaustion, and the emotional exhaustion. and I teach, how to be a good steward, creating a sustainable self-stewardship routine. We talk about emotional intelligence and processing emotions, and we talk a lot about thought work, of course, and how to manage your mind and that mental fitness piece. And so that's kind of what I'm doing over at the Mama Doc School. And then I also do work with groups of physicians, bringing essentially my Thrive RX program to their institution and teaching groups of physicians these things, how to thrive in their career, how to reconnect with the joy of medicine, how to be fulfilled again, essentially teaching those same things about the thought work, the emotional intelligence, and self-stewardship as well. So I do speaking, I do retreats, and all of it involves coaching because, at the end of the day, it really comes down to our thoughts, because our thoughts drive everything, our emotions, our actions, and then those ultimately create all of our results.
Love it. All right. How do people find you if they're looking to learn more?
Yeah, so they can go to mammadocschool.com. I have a free mini course there called Secrets to Lasting Weight Loss. They didn't teach in med school. So people can check that out, or go to my blog, which is mammadocschool.com/blog. And if you'd like to learn more about the work that I do with medical groups, or potentially have me come speak to your medical group or put on a retreat or a program for your group, you can go to physicianwellnesssolutions.com.
Okay. Now, anything we didn't talk about that we should talk about before we end?
I was just thinking for your community, because I know you are a charting champion and teach a lot about that, is just this connection of the dread that people have about charting, right? And how that might be impacting people's health. Because the dread, a lot of times from the women doctors I work with, they tell me that's a huge reason why they turn to food. They're dreading their charting. They want to eat something to make it less painful. And then, it's all the mindless eating. And then they're not maintaining their weight or getting to their weight loss goals or keeping it off when they do lose it. And so I think that it's so important to address this dread we have about charting through a program like yours, to really kind of break it down and understand, like, why are you having that dread? Why are you so frustrated? Because if we don't, it could be impacting your health, right? Because carrying the extra weight, of course, can impact us in so many different ways, but it's possibly impacting your energy, how well you sleep. It could cause all sorts of other diagnoses eventually. So I think it's really important to address that and understand that it could be all connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Jen, for having this conversation with us. And I really enjoyed looking at burnout from the perspective of the emergency department, and just some of the things you're doing with physicians. I think you're making an incredible impact in the physician world. So thank you so much for the work you do.
Thank you, Sarah. You're doing an incredible job as well, and such important work. And it's been a pleasure having this time to talk.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. Bye. Hey, if you found this podcast episode helpful, I would encourage you to like and subscribe. Every time you do, you help a colleague or friend find our podcast, and it can help them too. Don't forget to share it along with your friends. If you're looking for extra help, don't forget we have Charting Champions for physicians and Smarter Charting for nurse practitioners and other clinicians to help you get home with your work done. We are helping you create sustainable clinical medicine. Thanks for listening.